It represents half the title of the great George Lucas space opera. 9 full-scale skirmishes have been documented in the 6-movie saga. Whether representing a pawn or a puppet master, 8 games have been generated that simulate the tactics of these and many unforeseen conflicts. Star Wars Rebellion, developed by Cool Hand Interactive in 1998, was the forerunner of the license's cache of RTS games, although Rebellion followed the 4X format: explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Its predecessors were Civilization in 1991, created by strategy mogul Sid Meier, and Master of Orion in 1993.
I am C-3PO Human-Cyborg Relations, and this is my counterpart, R2-D2. We have prepared a report on the current state of the galaxy.
In Rebellion, commanders took control of either the Galactic Empire or the Rebel Alliance, and needed to gather appropriate resources, manufacture troops, facilities, and fleets, and divvy up mission assignments.
Okay, now what?
An advisor droid guided you through the interface map, which consisted of 10 to 20 sectors very similar to the Star Wars universe, although often in mismatched places. A turn-based clock ticked the time away, processing the events of each day at its conclusion. Many players chided Rebellion for its low production value and regarded it as a failure in bringing Star Wars into the strategy world. Others saw it as a valid step in a direction the series had not yet gone. The first true RTS of the series, Star Wars Force Commander, was released a year after Phantom Menace on March 22, 2000. The launch of Sierra Entertainment's Homeworld in 1999, as well as a lukewarm reception at the Electronic Gaming Expo a year earlier, prompted LucasArts to change the Rebellion-inspired 2D engine into a 3D battlefield map. Players took on the role of Bren Tantor, a young Imperial hopeful who began his career as a stormtrooper but was soon entrusted with his very own command. Tantor guided his forces through 24 campaign missions, beginning with scouring the dunes of Tatooine for a missing escape pod. 27 multiplayer operations were also included.
We have the opportunity to secure a decisive victory. Do not fail me, General.
Although eagerly awaited, fans were generally disappointed by Force Commander, citing weak graphics, interface, and gameplay as primary flaws. Still, Force Commander was notable for being one of the first games in the series to let players experience events that were not covered in the first trilogy, as well as offering different perspectives on battles they knew quite well. Force Commander also featured an attempt at capturing a techno version of John Williams' spectacular score, the execution of which fans were bitterly divided about. With a 3D vantage point proving unsuccessful, LucasArts adopted the Genie engine used for its contemporary Age of Empires II. Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds was released in 2001 and took the genre into the newly scribed prequel trilogy, depicting some of the more epic moments of Episode 1. At launch, the player progressed through the struggles of 6 factions across 6 campaigns. The tutorial challenged Qui-Gon Jinn to train Chewbacca and his clan of Wookiees to survive the Battle of Alaris Prime. The second campaign detailed the exploits of the Trade Federation under the command of 9. The third followed the plight of the Gungans from the early Civil War era of Boss Gallo, including the creation of Oto Gunga, to Boss Nass's fateful meeting with Queen Amidala. Campaign 4 highlighted battles fought by Darth Vader, including one which rescued General Veers and his all-terrain armored transport technology. 5 plotted discoveries made by Princess Leia, including an unexpected alliance with one of the last known Jedi, Ichu Shenjan. And finally 6 followed Chewie and Han back to Kashyyyk to liberate the Wookiee planet from Trandoshan slavers. Eager to relive history for the better, some of the bonus missions manifested make-believe scenarios. The Trade Federation took a second stab at their failure on the grassy plains of Naboo, and the Empire imagined a more heavily guarded shield generator on Endor. Gameplay comprised the 4X standards: gather carbon or nova crystals to erect troop centers, mech factories, or Jedi temples so grenadiers, scouts, or Padawans could be generated. As the player researched and advanced in tech levels, new structures or units became unlocked. Victory was established when one player either decimated all of the opposition, captured the enemy's holocrons for 400 game days, or constructed and protected a unique structure only available at Tech Level 4. In addition to the standard and multiplayer games, Battlegrounds also featured a scenario editor. The mode allowed players to create their own experiences and featured unique characters that were not seen in the single-player campaign. Finally, LucasArts had created an RTS that was, for the most part, well received by the gaming populace. Despite some small issues with the engine, such as the rigid camera which was deemed not the best choice for sci-fi games, Battlegrounds stood strong as the most legitimate soldier Star Wars had on the RTS front. In 2002, shortly after the opening of Attack of the Clones, LucasArts capitalized on the success of Battlegrounds and released its lone expansion pack, Clone Campaigns. The extension introduced new units, as well as 2 lengthy confrontations between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The CIS exploits followed Severance Tan, a trusted disciple of Count Dooku, beginning with the Battle of Geonosis and ending with the infiltration of a Republic base on the planet of Serapen. In the Republic Army, Mace Windu guided a young Ichu Shenjan through Geonosis and the aftermath of Serapen, ending with the seizure of the Imperial Palace on Coruscant after the Battle of Endor. Although Clone Campaigns was technically an expansion, the events played out by Severance and Shenjan stood in the middle of the original game, between the 3rd and 4th campaigns. By 2005, all of the Star Wars factions and standoffs had been represented and recreated down to the careful placement of key units and characters. But the battle sims that made the wars playable were developed on engines not intended to travel to a galaxy far, far away. In 2006, Petroglyph Studios, a clan made up of the members of Command & Conquer creators Westwood Studios, introduced the Alamo engine. The new 3D toolset inspired Empire at War in February of 2006. In the standard mode, gameplay was split between land and space, with structures and units adjusting accordingly. Instead of the tediousness of previous resource-gathering installments, Empire at War granted useful materials based on the worlds under the player's control. Battles were triggered by whoever controlled each planet. The attacker's perspective was mainly from space, while the defender controlled the land. Attackers needed to secure specific landing points in order to deploy ground troops, while defenders had 10 ground units at their disposal at the start of the battle. Some units could interact with both land and space.
Awaiting instructions.
Empire at War filled the generational gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Playable factions were thinned to the newly formed Rebellion and the ever-growing Empire. Empire at War featured infamous characters and familiar locations, but the sheer volume of heroes, villains, planets, and systems was the most complete and accurate to date, even sporting faces from other Star Wars spin-offs. The campaign took players all the way through to the Battle of Yavin, spanning many events both seen and unseen on film, and possibly culminating in the Empire crushing the rebel upstarts. Empire at War also featured Galactic Conquest, which was more of a sandbox mode for galactic supremacy that utilized different options as well as 2 additional endings. Anyone confident enough to let their forces play by themselves for a while could switch the camera to an adaptive cinema mode. It cut the perspective to widescreen and raced around the battlefield looking for the most dramatic angles and explosive confrontations. While the Skywalker Galaxy had been interactive for quite a while, this marked the first time players could sit back and watch their decisions pass or fail in an unobstructed cinematic presentation. Later, in October of the same year, LucasArts released the expansion Forces of Corruption. Corruption trailed the nefarious newborn persona Tiber Zahn and his gang of criminals and defilers known as the Zahn Consortium. The campaign detailed the Consortium's involvement in the events between the destruction of the first and second Death Stars, as well as other key moments like the outlandish theft of the Eclipse-class star Dreadnought. In addition to more units, heroes, and other bonuses, the material featured a corruption aspect when playing the Zahn Consortium in Galactic Conquest, which garnered further bonuses from controlled planets. Empire at War, although generally regarded as the best Star Wars RTS, wasn't without inconsistencies. Some critics panned it for being too repetitive, while others extolled it for building success upon prior failures. Regardless, Empire at War framed itself on the groundwork set before it, along with representing a solid model for future Star Wars strategy games. The military minds controlling the biggest battles took millions of lives into account when marking each course of action, but in the end, it often came down to one soldier saving the day. Over the course of 6 films, we've seen countless rebels, stormtroopers, clones, and droids meet their destiny either on the battlefield or in the vacuum of space. But after 22 years of Star Wars games, not one put the player in the shoes of the faceless foot soldier. In 2002, EA published the PC game Battlefield 1942, developed by Digital Illusions. The game allowed players to assume infantry roles from either the Axis or Allied nations, choose between 5 classes, find and capture control points, and pilot vehicles and mounted turrets. The game was a huge success, spawning various sequels and expansions, and it provided the template to the most successful Star Wars game of all time. On September 20th, 2004, the same day the original trilogy was finally available on DVD, LucasArts released the pandemic-developed Star Wars Battlefront for the Xbox, PS2, and PC. Players could alternate between fighting the battles of the Clone Wars or the Galactic Civil War. Combatants then had the option of enlisting in the Rebellion, the Empire, the Republic, or the Confederacy, depending on the era. Like Battlefield, there were 5 classes of infantry to choose from. The basic soldier was equipped with the best all-around rifle. The heavy weapons trooper had a rocket launcher, the sniper was skilled at long range, and the pilot could build turrets and dole out health. The 5th was a specific class for each army. Rebels had the Wookiee smuggler, who carried time bombs, a bowcaster, and a grenade launcher. The Empire could employ the Dark Trooper, a variation of the dreaded enemies from 1995's Dark Forces. The Republic's clone army had the Jet Trooper, armed with a jetpack and an EMP launcher. And finally, Separatists could control droidekas, complete with shields and the ability to roll for faster travel. Besides running and gunning on foot, soldiers could man anti-air guns and every manner of vehicle, from TIE fighters to Hailfire tanks. Much of Battlefront's marketing campaign stressed the ability to take part in the saga's pivotal battles, and it delivered. The battles of Naboo, Geonosis, Hoth, and Endor were all present and accounted for. The game also provided maps set in familiar locales such as Theed, Mos Eisley, Bespin, Yavin, and Kamino. To increase the selection, the expanded universe ice planet of Ren Var was added as well. Battlefront also gave fans their first glimpse of the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk, which would not be seen on screen until 2005's Revenge of the Sith. The meat and potatoes of Battlefront was the Galactic Conquest mode, wherein players would pick an army and attempt to systematically annex one planet after another. Once in possession, players could then choose to use its planetary bonus in the next battle. Bonuses included soldier regeneration, sabotaging enemy vehicles at the start of a battle, having an extra garrison of troops, increased soldier accuracy, and the Jedi Hero, a time period specific NPC who laid waste to the opposing side. Fans unwilling to split their screen could also take the fight online. The PC supported 32 players, the Xbox could handle 16, and the PS2 could only manage 4, unless soldiers obtained special dedicated software. Battlefront received fairly positive reviews, prompting the downloadable release of a new level, Jabba's Palace, 2 months later. When the final receipt had been tallied, Battlefront became the best-selling Star Wars game ever made.
Our forces have destroyed the shield generator.
At least for a year. LucasArts wasted no time in capitalizing on Battlefront's success and produced Star Wars Battlefront 2 on November 1st, 2005 for the Xbox, PS2, PC, and PSP. The game improved on many of the shortcomings found in the prior entry. It also brought the battle into space, pitting capital ships against each other and allowing players to land in opposing hangars to wreak havoc from within. Having listened to fans, developers made playable heroes available during combat. While the majority of these characters were Jedi from various eras, each wielding classic force powers, players could also control Boba and Jango Fett, Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Princess Leia. Heroes could only be played for a limited time, but that time was extended based upon how many enemies the player could destroy. The game benefited from a revamped Galactic Conquest mode, which worked space battles into the larger and more interactive map. Even more impressive was the creation of an actual story mode dubbed Rise of the Empire, which followed the missions of the 501st Legion, a wink to the real-life fan club, as they fought for the Republic, and later the Empire. Events were recollected by the voice of Tamura Morrison, playing a clone looking back on the horrors of war. Other improvements in Battlefront 2 included the ability to sprint, more intelligent AI, and an additional special class of soldier, such as the Clone Commander, the Magna Guard, the Imperial Officer, and the Bothan Spy. In addition, new Episode 3 levels were added, like Utapau, Mustafar, Coruscant, and a tweaked Kashyyyk. Also, special weapons were awarded for killing a certain number of enemies with a specific gun without dying. Multiplayer capacity expanded to 24 on the PS2, 32 on the Xbox, and 64 on the PC. On January 31st, 2006, LucasArts released Xbox Live Premium content that included 4 maps from Battlefront 1, as well as 2 new heroes, Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress. All in all, Battlefront 2's improvements helped it to overtake the previous iteration's title as the top-selling Star Wars game to date. In October of 2007, LucasArts returned to the front of battle with the help of Rebellion developments. Star Wars Battlefront Renegade Squadron, a PSP exclusive, introduced a brand new story following Commander Col Serra as he recounted the missions of the titular Band of Rebels, a covert unit led by Han Solo. The game made a bold move by erasing infantry classes altogether. In their place, players were allowed to customize their character. Everything from species to uniforms could be altered, and the weapons and items could be swapped out during battle using a point system with a 100 credit limit. The game launched with a limited edition white PSP with Darth Vader on the back. Battlefront's success can be attributed to its simplified gameplay. There were no S-foils to lock into position, Muja berries to gather, force puzzles to solve, or convoluted storylines to make sense of. All you had to do was enlist a class and thin the opposition. Primitive as the structure seemed to some, it gave would-be stormtroopers a chance to view the wars head-on. No battle could be won with a single soldier, and while troops may look expendable from a distance, Battlefront taught us that every blaster counts. Whether they were manufactured on the stormy seas of Camino or reared through the Imperial Academy from a young age, the Star Wars battalions have perpetuated a conflict that's generated imagery never before seen on a silver screen or loading screen. Rebellion started the strategy, Force Commander broadened the perspective, Galactic Battlegrounds tied the trilogies together, Empire at War entered the cosmos, and Battlefront put each player's finger on the trigger. So while each skirmish has been accounted for and then some, the many ways gamers can experience them could be endless.
He is ready to take his place in the galaxy. May the Force be with him.
In Episode 6, we'll walk the path of a rebel spy and Jedi of the Reborn Republic. Spanning 4 games, the journey of Kyle Katarn took the franchise from secret saga missions to the episodes of tomorrow.